The wait is over. Football is back, and the start of the Jim Harbaugh era starts against the Raiders, and we hope they dominate. And to do that, they have to unleash their new two-headed monster at running back, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and it's hard to keep a smile off my face because we finally waited, and thank you to everyone who rocked with us throughout the offseason to get to this point and to make sure that you never miss a show. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, it's Raider week. It's week 1. It is time to see what the new look Chargers are going to be under Jim Harbaugh, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator. And we're going to get into our keys for success. On offense, it's all about establishing that dominance of the line of scrimmage, bringing that physical nature to life. And on defense, it's all about abusing Gardner Minshew and reminding him that he is a backup quarterback and finishing things off with your bold predictions, some of ours, and we're going to tell you who's going to win this football game.
God, and by the outfit I'm just realizing I'm wearing right now, you might think that I'm picking the Raiders, but take it easy on me. I have a baby. I'll just say they're spit up on all of my other clothes. But super excited to get into this one because football is back and you get a chance to dominate the Raiders in week 1. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. David, let's get into the keys for success. The first keys for success of the season, and I'm very excited about getting into what this Chargers team can do to beat the Raiders and get Jim Harbaugh's start with the Chargers off to a 1-0 start. And to me, and we talked about it before the show, we know how much the Chargers have put an emphasis on physicality. We know that basically the selling point to the fans was, what if you gave Justin Herbert a great running game? We all have seen what he can do when he has to put the team on his back, but what if you give him a complimentary option? And now we finally, for the first time really, David, get to see this totally revamped running back room in action with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a huge emphasis on this football game and throughout this season because we know with Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator and Jim Harbaugh being the head man in charge that they want to run the rock, and it's all about unleashing the two-headed monster of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and utilizing them to great effectiveness. And for me, when they do use them, I want to see them really use that power side, that left side of the offensive line to get going. Rashawn Slater, get Bradley Bozeman over there, get Zion Johnson over there moving forward and absolutely smashing heads, opening up big holes for J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards to power through.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. Like, they don't have to have a great running game to win this game. They don't. Right? Herbert could win this game if the running game isn't great. We've seen it many times. That's not the point, though. The point is this is the start of the Jim Harbaugh era, and I'm not expecting it to be all the way where it's going to be eventually. They're not at the destination yet, but you want to see that part of it translate quickly. You want to see the Chargers dominate the Raiders up front. And guess what? Every successful run that you have is one less time that Max Crosby gets a chance to tee off on Justin Herbert. So there's so many reasons for why that is going to be important in this game. And we also didn't get to see these guys. Each guy's got a little banged up in training camp, but like not that banged up, right? It feels like they were saving them for this game.
It does.
It feels like they wanted these guys to be fresh. These guys were out of practice. They didn't get a single snap in the preseason. So they've been saving them for this game. That is such a big part of how this team can improve in 2024, especially losing the receivers that they did. And now you need that running game to be a lot better. And I think another just key for me is just the offensive line has to be a strength for you, right? Like this is an offensive line centric team now, right? That's what they told us. Offensive linemen are weapons. And I think when you're looking at this game, Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins are a problem. It's not just about Joe Alt versus Max Crosby, right? Can Trey Pipkins show that his transition to the right side is going well and he can hang there, especially against a very good defensive tackle in Christian Wilkins? Will Zion Johnson be the improved version of himself that we want him to be? These are all very important things for the Chargers to go out and win this game in physical dominant fashion.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important that that offensive line, not only the offensive line, but the receivers are doing their job blocking, that the tight ends are doing their job blocking. We know what Will Dissly brings to the table as a run blocker and a pass blocker. As Andy Bischoff, the Chargers tight end coach, said, he is one of the very few players in the league that can control that C gap. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for them to get moving forward, to get exotic with the run looks, to be able to bust out those 7 offensive linemen, bring in Scott Matlock, the big old defensive lineman that they converted to fullback, and assert their dominance, and own the line of scrimmage, dominate the time of possession, and just impose their will.
Yeah, and also protect Justin Herbert, most importantly, right? The other thing, too, make sure the alignment is right. A lot of penalties on Thursday Night Football, seemingly kind of more on one side than the other. Chiefs getting the whistle swallowed, of course.
Always.
But what other keys to success do you have for this one?
Yeah, so the next one that kind of builds off of the running game to me is when you draw them in and you force them to put more guys in the box, hit them over the top with that play action. And I feel like if you're able to utilize that run game and you're able to get good yards, then they're going to have to start accounting for it. And then you're going to see something that you rarely have seen in the Justin Herbert era. That is wide open passing windows. And that is exactly what I want to see, is utilize that play action, get your playmakers in space. That's exactly what I want. I want you to get the ball to the Quentin Johnstons of the world with some blockers in front, with Darius Davis. I want to see them get some opportunities to go make some yards after the catch. Utilize your weapons in the best way where they're going to be successful.
And it looks like the Chargers will be without one of their new weapons because DJ Chark hasn't practiced all week, at least as far, up until the Thursday practice report. I doubt just playing or, practicing on Friday will be enough to get him out there. So that leads to my next key, which is just the young receiving core has to step up in this one, right? This is the first game post Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, 2 Chargers greats. No Gerald Everett in the building. No Austin Eckler in the building. This is the first time since 2016 that they don't have Keenan Allen or Mike Williams playing in a game or on the roster, right? This is a very, very different look. First time in Justin Herbert's career that he's going to be dealing with this. Obviously, those guys have gotten hurt and he's had games like that. But you have Ladd McConkey getting a tough matchup against Nate Hobbs in this first matchup, right? I think also Quentin Johnston. Can you see his growth? Will he start with the potential absence of DJ Chark? But no matter what, the bottom line is this young receiving core, it's time to go, right? And this is the receiving core you're going through your season with. It's time for that group to show that it's enough because it goes into the season with way more question marks than answers. I think there's lots of guys you could be high on in that room. I think there's reason for optimism. At the same time, those guys, this is their first chance to actually show it.
Absolutely. It's really, really going to be important for them to go out there and ball out and show the faith that the coaching staff showed in them so that they can go out there and make plays, and because they're going to be counted on. And I think the last key for me is a very important one. It's protect the ball. Protect the football. Do not cough it up. Do not give the Raiders any short fields. Don't give them any extra opportunities. Protect the football. No fumbles, no interceptions by Justin. Obviously, he's historically great at that. So hopefully he continues in that fashion. But protect the football. It's very, very important. It is the difference between winning and losing a lot of times.
And not just winning and losing. I think the important thing with that is that's how you let teams that are worse than you stay in games. That's how you let teams who are worse than you end up winning, right? It's just for this team, you could have one goal line fumble that changes the whole trajectory of the game. That's all it takes. Yeah. We've seen it happen before. So ball security is something you definitely have to, take advantage of, and you want to end up on the positive side of that. And it'll just be very exciting to see Justin Herbert with this offense and him taking the reins. And the reason, he hasn't been talked about much in this part just because the expectations for him are always so high. I mean, we want to see the rest of the guys show what they can do around Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert walks into this game with the expectation that he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. And not just that, but the fact that he's going to be able to elevate the receiving options in the young core and, lesser experienced guys that are around him. So Justin Herbert goes without saying he has to go and be Justin Herbert. And the way that he's practiced leading up into this game after getting back from the injury, it feels like he's going to be the guy that we all know that he is. But they're not going up against a quarterback of that caliber. They're going up against Gardner Minshew, who's a scrappy dude and one of the very best backups in the league. but he's a backup for a reason, and the Chargers have to show him exactly that. So we're getting into that and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just the job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job and just might be open for the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. They are only going to LinkedIn. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And I think the thing that always sets LinkedIn apart from anywhere else, the quality of the candidates that you're getting. The last thing anyone can hire their friend's cousin, right? Doesn't mean it's a good fit. The thing about LinkedIn Jobs is finding that quality candidate so that you don't have to go search for someone to fill that same role only a couple months later. I think that is why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, it's time to get into the defensive keys for success the first time this season, and the first time with new defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, who it's very hard to not get excited about what we've seen from him so far. Obviously, as Charger fans, you know that you always can only be, so optimistic, and you can only be told that you have a defensive mastermind so many times before you have to see it to believe it. And now we get to see Jesse Minter put it into action, right? He is working with a mix and match group that looks a lot different from the one in 2023. The good news is the one in 23 wasn't good. So this could be absolutely a better unit. How much better? We're going to start to find out that on Sunday. And I think they get a juicy matchup because they're playing against a backup quarterback. They get in their first game of the season a backup quarterback that the Raiders are starting and won their starting quarterback job over Aiden O'Connell. Yes, Aiden O'Connell helped put up 63 on the Chargers. I know that, right? Really had nothing to do with Aiden O'Connell. That was a dysfunctional team that absolutely gave up on their head coach last year. And also, to all the 63-21 Truth or Raider fans out there, we won. We won the deal. We were on the winning side of that game. You won the battle. We won the war. We ended up with Jim Harbaugh. And you ended up with the general manager that put together the team that got beat 63-21 by Aiden O'Connell.
Which is the most hilarious thing in the entire NFL. It's hilarious.
It could only happen to the Raiders. I mean, it could really only happen to the Raiders. And, good luck to Antonio Pierce. Cool that they kept a dude who definitely rallied that team, and they played a lot better for him at the end of last season. It's not close to what the Chargers have now. And the Chargers wouldn't trade for Antonio Pierce for Jim Harbaugh any day of the week. And the Raiders probably should have tried to get him. But show Gardner Minshew that he's a backup for a reason. This goes back to Anthony Lynn, Justin Herbert's rookie season. And a famous quote that came out is, hey, Justin Herbert's a backup for a reason. There's a reason you're not seeing him out there. What did he do? Went on to have one of the most historic rookie seasons of all time. But that's who the Chargers get. And Gardner Minshew is really good for a backup. He's a very, very good backup. He's a backup. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is he maybe one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL? Maybe you can make that, right? But he's down there towards the bottom of that. I mean, 57th out of 61 in completion percentage, 34th in passer rating, 6th longest time to throw in the preseason in 2024. Minshew has a tendency to take sacks. The pass rush has to get home. Minshew also has a tendency to potentially unravel. He did have a game last year where he threw 3 interceptions. He only had 9 interceptions, so it doesn't seem like, he started most of the season. 9 interceptions isn't a bad number, right? The problem is he took a lot of sacks, right? And he also did have a game where he threw 3 interceptions. Who's never done that? Justin Herbert's never had a 3 interception game, which is crazy that he's 4 years in his career and has never had that. But I do think that Jesse Minter has a chance to really fluster him with disguises, like blitzes, force him into mistakes. And although he only had 9 interceptions last year, he put the ball on the ground 8 times, and he ended up losing 5 of them. So started 14 games, had 14 turnovers. Remind him why he's not starting up until this season.
Yeah, and I think when you watch Gardner Minshew, it's pretty obvious to me that he holds on to the football, or he tries to escape and run out of the pocket too soon before the play develops. And I think for me, it's sending relentless waves of pressure at him. Yeah. It's mix up your edge rushers, where you deploy them. I want to see Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack get some run on the inside as well as the outside. Obviously, mix in Tuli Tuipulotu, Bud Dupree. keep switching up those guys, move their locations, try to make that offensive line, try to figure out and identify where these edge rushers are, where they're coming from, and that is going to cause a lot of hectic action for Gardner Minshew. He's going to, and I also noticed after you do get a ton of pressure on him, he starts to kind of see and feel ghosts out there, and he starts to rush, and he starts to make bad passes. He's not the most accurate quarterback in the world when you get no pressure on him, but when you do get pressure on him, then he starts to kind of move around or, start up a little bit too quickly. So relentless waves of pressure on him all game long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to force him kind of into some traps. And I think when you're talking about the Chargers and their pass rush, like, the Raiders should have a decent offensive line. Like, Colt Miller's a very good player, right? Send everyone else, right? You know where the strength is. They have some other good players too. I don't want to take away from that. They have a decent offensive line for sure. But you can get an even bigger advantage if you do the things that we're talking about. I think the other big thing here, especially I think probably with some wounds still from the Brandon Staley era, is just have a great game plan for Davante Adams, right? Yes. Davante Adams is borderline quarterback proof. He can go off no matter who the quarterback is. That's just, he's shown he's been able to do it, right? These are the last 4 games he's had against the Chargers. 4 for 140 or 10 for 141 and a touchdown, 8 for 177 and 2 touchdowns, 8 for 75, no touchdowns, 8 for 101 and a touchdown. 34 catches,
receptions,
494 yards. Yeah. So he's averaged 8.5 catches, 123.5 yards, and 1 touchdown over the last 4 games. And I know he's going to get his to some extent, right? If he goes 6 for 85 in this game, that doesn't bother me at all. That's, below average game for him, right? 2 of those games he did last year with Aiden O'Connell. So it's like just Gardner Minshew isn't, just the fact they have Gardner Minshew out there isn't going to necessarily stop him. And I also just think it all kind of comes together, right? This is not only a huge test for Asante Samuel Jr. and Christian Fulton and their first outing in this defense, but also goes back to what we talked about the first time. If you take Davante Adams away, life is going to be a lot tougher for Gardner Minshew.
That's what I was going to say, is take him away. Do what Bill Belichick does when he's coaching against every other team, is take their best weapon away from them and literally force anybody else on that offense to beat you. Anyone, whether it's Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, their first round pick, Michael Mayer, any of those other players, force them to have to step up and make the plays. Take Davante Adams out of the game as much as you can. My next one is be a nuisance at the line of scrimmage. They are going to want to get the ball out quickly. They know that the Chargers pass rush is lethal and deadly. So what do the Chargers need to do? Get their hands up at the line of scrimmage. The defensive linemen tip those passes, create those turnovers. We've seen it in the offseason where they've practiced it, and it has borne fruit for them. So they need to do that in this football game as well. Take all of that practice, put it in the game, and go create some turnovers while making things very uncomfortable for Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, and we saw pretty brilliantly the way that Jesse Minter deployed it in the preseason when obviously he's not rolling out his most exotic looks. It was super effective. And it wasn't even just the defensive linemen. It was defensive backs. It was slot blitzes. Because the thing about the slot blitzes is it works in 2 ways. Not only can you get more instant pressure, but you also have a guy that's in a throwing lane that quarterback's going to try to get to. And you can tell that there's been such a huge emphasis put on get in that throwing lane, bat the ball down. Even, you don't have to just only go for the sack. If you get this team in 2nd and 10, that's a big disadvantage for them. And that's why I want to go with my last key for success, which is basically just an your boy Q key for the Raiders' success, which is get the Raiders off track, right? What are you talking about being so important for this team? Staying ahead of the chains, being able to put themselves in manageable situations, because the Raiders did give up 130 plus rushing yards in every preseason game. The Chargers gave up 176 rushing yards per game in the preseason, right? We're not talking about that much. I'm not super concerned with it with the guys that were out there, but at the same time, if you want to talk about, the 4 horsemen and your crazy pass rush, it's not going to matter on 3rd and 1.
Right.
It just isn't, right? Don't make it easier for them. Like Gardner Minshew can beat you if you keep putting him in these advantageous situations on big downs.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to beat you in 3rd and 10s all game. He's not. And that's why a batted pass will do that, right? A run stuff will do that. You have to get this team off track. If you get them off track, it's going to be a very, very messy game. And if you're looking at their running game, Zamir White was very good towards the end of last season, right? The last 3 games he had 67 carries for 238 yards. So not only was he pretty good, but they used him 20 plus times in each of those games. Antonio Pierce, a defensive guy, will ride the rock if you let him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Why would it? The alternative is putting the ball in Gardner Minshew's hands for the entire game. I'm going to look like such an idiot if Gardner Minshew just goes out there and balls out versus Jesse Minter's defense.
I can't see it.
Please, Jesse Minter, please don't let that happen to me because I've trashed Gardner Minshew, who, if he was the Chargers backup, I would love that, right? Would I love it if he was the starting quarterback? Absolutely not. And that's just how I kind of feel about it. But they want to pound the rock. If you can get them into those certain longs, if you can force them into those obvious passing situation, this Chargers pass rush is going to eat. End of story. That's it. Jesse Minter is not going to, you're not going to be able to convert consistently against Jesse Minter with his defensive mind against this pass rush with the amount of talent that they have there. So that's, I think, another big key for me. But we do have our bold predictions and our game predictions to get into, and the fans got really bold for theirs. So we're going to talk about it, how we feel about those before giving our own and telling you who is going to win the first game of the Jim Harbaugh era and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about PrizePicks because PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, all you have to do is it's you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, and they're giving you one. Right now, 1 Caleb Williams passing yards gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week of September. He only has to get 1 yard. Right? I don't know how good he's going to be. Should be pretty good. But he only has to get 1 yard, and I think he can do that. And also, another great thing about PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. But football is back, and of course, I'm looking at the Chargers. And Justin Herbert, if you want to win on him, all you have to do is have him go more or less than 232.5 passing yards, and that seems attainable. And I think also more or less than half of an interception for Justin Herbert. You combine that with Caleb Williams, you're going right there. But all you have to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL.PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. David, let's get into our first bold predictions of the season, and we're switching things up a little bit, and we wanted to hear what you guys had to say for your bold predictions. And if you go really bold and you end up hitting, I will do something for you. I don't know what it is yet because this is brand new and we're going by the seat of our pants here. I will do something for you if you get really bold. Like I saw one that's like Quentin Johnson goes for 50 yards. It's got to be bolder than that, right? But if you have something crazy and it happens, we'll figure something out. We'll get you on the show, do something for you for sure. But I do want to tell everyone, thank you for making us your first listen, especially heading into the inaugural game of the season. But for your second listen, try out the new Locked On NFL podcast because Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with my guy, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. And you can find that wherever you get your podcast from on YouTube as well. Super excited because they're also getting the local experts involved with that too. And nobody covers their teams like the people who cover them every single day. But Dave, let's get to our bold predictions here. And let's start with a guy we know well, 619 Shaggy. And his bold prediction is this today. J.K. Dobbins, 113 yards and a touchdown in his first game with the Chargers. Joe Alt only allows 1 pressure against Mack Crosby, and the defense forces 2 turnovers and has 5 sacks. How do you feel about that one? Do you think that one's doable?
I like elements of that.
Sure.
I think there's a couple of them that are definitely attainable. I think J.K. Dobbins, 113 and a touchdown. I can see that happening. I think he's going to get a good volume of carries. I feel like, and Greg Roman said it, they're going to ride with the hot hand. And I think if J.K. Dobbins is healthy, I think he can show very quickly that he is going to be someone who could have the hot hand. And
when he could have a 50-yard carry, right? So he could eat up
he has
half
that
of
home
that
run ability. Yeah. Also, like the 1 pressure given up against Max. I mean, I love it. I would absolutely die to see that. But we're talking about one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL here, going up against a rookie who is switching to the right side for the first time.
And that's why I wanted to get that one, right? Because I wanted to talk about just, hey, let's have some realistic expectations for Joe Alt, right? Like if Rashawn Slater is going up against Max Crosby and he only gives up 2 pressures over the course of a game, that's an insane game from all-pro Rashawn Slater.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I wanted to use this one, because like that is probably unreasonable expectations. That's the reason it's a bold prediction on today's show. But defense forces 2 turnovers and the team has 5 sacks. I think that's probably the most believable on any of those. I could definitely get on board with that. All 3 of those happening is absolutely super bold. This might be a little bolder though. Brandon Yapko here Chargers will play lights out on defense, shutting out the Raiders and winning with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. BTF, you both the F up. David, could the Chargers pitch a shutout against Gardner Minshew and company? That's definitely bold. I don't know if I'm going all the way there yet, but I love where their head's at.
I would love it. I mean, I really would truly love it. I would not have to worry about seeing a Raider fan in my mentions for the next time until they play the Chargers next this season. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that they are going to be much improved on defense, but a shutout, I'm not there yet. I haven't seen it yet. We got to see what the defense looks like before I can feel comfortable saying that they are going to shut somebody out.
Yeah, I'm very high on how much this defense can improve. And that's no reason I wanted to use this one, is just because let's have somewhat realistic expectations for how much this defense will have to improve, right? To be able to get to where they're shutting teams out. Even a team that I don't think is going to be very good, like the Raiders, still has a ways to go. But that is the way you do a bold prediction right now. The Chargers putting up a goose egg in Jim Harbaugh's first game would be awesome. Let's get to Stank here real quick, David. He says, Darius Davis dominates the field position all game, almost runs on back. Herbie, 320 and 2 tugs. Quentin Johnston from red zone late, and Josh Palmer on a 40-plus yarder in the first half. Gus Edwards also gets 2 touchdowns, 28-17 Chargers win.
I like those. I mean, I can see that. I can see all of those happening, actually, and because I like the progression from Quentin Johnston. I feel like he has actually showed to be a better receiver than he was last year.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like he has all of the abilities that you want to use in the red zone. He has the size. He can go up and high point the football. We've seen that in the preseason game. And Gus Edwards scoring touchdowns, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of that this year. I like all of those bold predictions.
I like it too. I mean, I think any of those individually isn't that far out there, but yeah, calling all of those to happen in one game specifically, that definitely qualifies as bold enough to win something. But my bold prediction for this game, Scott Matlock gets his first NFL touchdown. There was no one more thrilled than me than seeing Scott Matlock changing his number to 44, being a 300-plus pound fullback, and also, he scored a touchdown in college. Like, this isn't new for him. He has experience doing this. And Jim Harbaugh says he's a 3-way player. So I think the 3-way player finds a way to get into the end zone. We saw Xander Horvath open up a Chargers season with a touchdown. Why not Scott Matlock, baby?
Man, I love that. That's fantastic. And of course, the other redheaded individual had to be spotlighted by Daniel Wade, of course.
You're
my
soul eater,
bold prediction is that the Chargers are going to run for 200 plus. And they're going to score 3 rushing touchdowns. I think they are going to dominate the Raiders on the ground.
And that would be just great payback, and I think a great kind of, showing of what direction these teams are going in. Like, it's a, hey, I'm here. This is the kind of team we are now that can do this, right? And, your boy Q said it. They're expecting the defense to really carry that Raiders team over there, because the other option is having Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew do it. Yeah, I'm going to talk more trash about it, especially, division rivals this year. They're going to get it from me
FTR, baby.
A family, trust, respect every day of the week. But David, It's time to put our money where our mouths are. I don't think there's any chance in the world you're not picking the Chargers to find a way to start this Jim Harbaugh era out, doing it the best way they possibly could, which is putting an absolute beat down on the Las Vegas Raiders.
You're damn right. I think the Chargers are going to abuse Gardner Minshew. I mean, I think they are going to have him seeing ghosts by the second half. I think he's going to look really, really uncomfortable. He is a backup for a reason. They are definitely going to make him look like that. I think the Chargers are going to blend the pass into a run-heavy attack, but I think they're going to dominate the time of possession en route to a route. 31-17. I have the Chargers winning big.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're throwing in probably a late Gardner Minshew garbage time touchdown too, which I think would probably be a little bit on brand. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers got off to a somewhat sluggish start offensively. I'm not 100% convinced that they get 30 plus in this game. Maybe, hey, you get a defensive touchdown. That changes the perspective on things too. And I think they're maybe even going to give up a little less than that to Gardner Minshew and company. I have the final for the first game, week 1, getting off to a 1-0 start for the Chargers. Chargers winning 24-13. A little bit more of a grind, maybe some sluggish moments offensively, maybe a couple key drops or something like that kind of stops them from because, hey, if they go put up 31 in week 1 of Greg Roman new offense, tons of turnover. Count me all the way in on this team for this season. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative than that. I think it might be a little bit more low scoring, but I do fully believe in Jesse Minter's defense going out there, keeping a team under 15 points in that first game, especially going up against a backup quarterback. And there's just no way to convince me the Chargers shouldn't absolutely win this game, right?
No
FanDuel
way.
has it at around 3 points right now, the Chargers as the favorite. Shout out to FanDuel. But I see a huge advantage at quarterback. I see a huge advantage at head coach. I don't think there's a huge talent disparity on defense, right? I just don't. No. I think the offense could have some growing pains, but I think the Chargers absolutely find a way to get things done, get off to a 1-0 start, headed to Carolina in a big road game where they have a chance against a bad team to get off to a 2-0 start in the Jim Harbaugh era. But it starts here, right? It starts with the Chargers taking care of business, getting off to a 1-0 start, keeping up with the Chiefs, who, of course, found a way to win against the Ravens. And a game that, oh, my God, John Harbaugh almost did us the biggest favor. Shout out to Jim's brother, because he was going to go for 2 and go for the win right there.
He definitely
in
was.
Week 1 on Thursday Night Football. But
I will see you at SoFi, baby.
Yes, and David, make sure you guys find David at the game. He will be at Thunder Alley. He'll be going around trying to see as many people as he possibly can, but he's in town from Texas to watch this first game in the Jim Harbaugh era. So he hopes to see you guys there, and we hope to see you guys for the post-game show that night on Sunday. There will be the post-cast show, and I think there's some really fun stuff going on there with Kenyon Barner joining the crew. Very excited about that. I'm excited what that post-cast show is going to do, but it's not going to take away our live post-game show on Sunday night, so make sure you guys are back here by following or subscribing on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, as well as following all of our social media, because we'll be posting all weekend about the game. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports, David at Dro Talk SD, and the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and find us on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But this is it, baby. 1-0. Go out there and absolutely manhandle the Tom Telesco Raiders and bring home that first W of Jim Harbaugh's career and show just why Justin Herbert now is in much better hands than he was before. But can't wait to see you guys Sunday night for the live post-game show. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.